So, when we talk about the possibility, the chances of getting a third stimulus check, as mentioned in the intro for today's show, a lot of people find hope in what we have recently seen in Georgia. And in case you happen to have been under a rock, the or in Iraq, get it, it's a joke. I'm horrible at those, right? But in case you happen to not have been paying attention to what has happened in Georgia, we basically had two Democrats win the recent Georgia Senate runoff elections. And point blank, period, the fact that these Democrats in Georgia have pulled this off, there's no other way to say this, but they increase the odds that we will see a third stimulus check. The reason is because of this. The Senate, which is the body that was under control of Republicans, the Senate has 100 seats. Without those two seats in play, Democrats had 48 seats. Republicans had 50 seats. Now you have an even split with those two seats going to Democrats. Now, before I kind of talk about or mention what this means and how that kind of 50-50 tie is broken, I do want to mention, in case you happen to forgot, that the House remains in control of the Democrats under the leadership of Nancy Pelosi. But so going back to the Senate, if you have a situation where there needs to be a tiebreaker. If it's okay, we've got 50 here, 50 here. Oh my gosh, what do we do on this vote? The person who then has the responsibility to come in and to break that tie is the Vice President of the United States, which going forward from January 20th will be Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. And so what this means is that essentially Democrats will control the Senate, not just with the tie-breaking vote, but something else that's important to note is they are going to control the Senate in terms of setting the, not just tone of the Senate, but setting the actual agenda of the Senate, what actually gets voted on. If you don't know, one of the reasons Mitch McConnell was referred to as like the Grim Reaper or like the Grim Turtle, right? One of the reasons why he was said to be the person that killed things in the Senate was simply because he literally just did not put anything up for a vote. He did not allow anything to get voted on. You'd have votes happen in the House, they'd come to the Senate, they'd just die because he wouldn't put things up for a vote. The most recent occurrence of seeing that is when we saw that $2,000 stimulus check when they were trying to convert, when you had Bernie Sanders in the Senate really pushing to convert that $600 check that many people are receiving now to a $2,000 check. Mitch McConnell simply wouldn't let it come up for a vote. But so now when we look at the changes in the Senate, that's one of the key things that is going to change. Not simply and only that the Democrats will have the tie-breaking vote under the leadership of Kamala Harris as that designated tiebreaker, but they will also be able, with the change in leadership, it is not going to be Mitch McConnell anymore setting the tone. He is not going to get to decide, well, what goes on the calendar? What do we vote on? He doesn't get to call the shots anymore. And so because of that, legislation that previously would never have even seen the daylight in the Senate now actually has a chance. So these changes, okay, these changes that I just discussed are what are actually going to ease passage of another stimulus relief bill. And I want to point out that President-elect Joe Biden, he's previously said that he supports more stimulus. Now, I do want to point out, I'm not going to go off some tangent here because I definitely can. I do want to point out that some economists, some public figures in his ear have been public about not supporting not just the $600 that we recently received, but they don't even really support future stimulus. The question then becomes, how much of his ear is he lending that audience, right? Is he really paying attention to what they're saying? Or is it just kind of going in one ear and out the other? But again, the main takeaway here is that simply based on the changes that we are seeing or that we have seen as a result of Democrats Ossoff and Warnock winning the recent Georgia Senate runoff elections, we definitely have a significant increase in our odds of seeing a third stimulus payment.